I've met people who earn six figures and are still broke. And I've met people who earn modest incomes but live in complete freedom. The difference? One built a lifestyle around income. The other built a system around wealth. The poor work for wages. The middle class work for security. The wealthy work for systems. That's why when they stop working, their wealth doesn't. Too many people think wealth is about a bigger paycheck. But if a bigger paycheck is your only plan, you've already given your freedom to someone else's schedule. Wealth begins when you no longer need the paycheck to live the life you want. Because here's the truth. Money runs out, but wealth doesn't. So today, I will teach you how to make the kind of money that outlives you. We'll rebuild the philosophy so that money becomes your servant, not your master. Let me tell you something I learned early in life. It's not the money you make, it's the money you keep and multiply. You can meet people earning $50,000 a year who are broke, and people earning $20,000 a year who are on their way to financial independence. The difference isn't always in the size of the paycheck. It's in the philosophy that governs what happens after the paycheck arrives. Most people are trained to focus entirely on earning. They chase promotions, extra shifts, and side gigs. Now, there's nothing wrong with earning more. It's important. But if you don't control and grow what you've already earned, you'll be like the man carrying water in a bucket full of holes. No matter how fast you run, it keeps leaking out. When I was younger, I met a man who made a fortune in his business, on paper, but he had no systems for keeping what he made. He spent in proportion to his income, took on unnecessary debt, and never invested in assets. 10 years later, his income had vanished, and so had his lifestyle. That was one of my first lessons. The act of keeping and multiplying money is an entirely different skill set from making it. Making money is like gathering seeds. Keeping and multiplying it is like planting them in fertile soil and tending them year after year. The first step is to plug the leaks. For most people, these leaks are hidden in plain sight. Credit card interest, unused subscriptions, impulse purchases, lifestyle upgrades that don't actually improve life. These small leaks add up to thousands over the years. And remember, every dollar you don't waste is not just a dollar saved, it's a dollar that could be earning for you for the rest of your life. Once you've stopped the leaks, you have to create a disciplined flow of money from your earnings into assets. Assets are anything that works for you, even when you're not working. Stocks that pay dividends, real estate that collects rent, businesses that produce cash flow, intellectual property that pays royalties. The wealthy understand that dollars are little workers. They put them into jobs, and their job is to bring back more dollars. And when those new dollars arrive, they don't spend them right away, they put them to work too. That's how wealth multiplies. The magic of this process is in compounding. A single investment that earns and reinvests can snowball into something remarkable over time. The earlier you start, the less you need to put in, because time is the secret ingredient. But compounding doesn't work if you keep interrupting it. Many people plant a seed, then dig it up to buy a new phone or take a vacation. The wealthy know that the longer you let the tree grow, the bigger the harvest will be. This principle changes how you see money entirely. You stop asking, "What can I buy?" and start asking, "What can this dollar become in 5 years if I treat it right?" That single change in thinking is one of the great dividing lines between those who live paycheck to paycheck and those who live in financial freedom. If you want to join the second group, remember, earning is step one, but keeping and multiplying is where the real game is played. Never forget, it's not what you make, it's what you keep and what you make it become. If you depend on a paycheck, you've already sold your freedom. Now, that might sound harsh, but think about it. A paycheck means your time is spoken for. It means someone else decides when you wake up, how much your hours are worth, and even, in many cases, how much time you can spend with your family. Don't misunderstand me. There's nothing wrong with earning a living through work. It's where most of us begin. But if it's where you plan to stay, you've given away the greatest treasure money can buy, choice. The truth is, wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in how much time you control. If your income stops the moment you stop working, you're not free. You're just trading hours for money. The wealthy understand this. They create income streams that continue, whether they're sitting at a desk, traveling the world, or sleeping soundly at night. That's why you see some people who seem to have endless time and others who are always rushing. The difference is that one group is living off active income and the other is living off assets that work for them. I remember when I was still working for a living, getting paid for my time, I noticed something. Every time I wanted to earn more, it meant giving more of my hours. But my hours were limited. There's a ceiling you can't break when your income is tied to your time. That was when I decided to start building streams of income that weren't chained to my presence. The first one was small, just a little investment that paid me a modest dividend every quarter. But it wasn't the amount that mattered. It was the proof of concept. Money had arrived without me having to trade an hour for it. That single moment changed how I thought about wealth forever. The starting point is simple. Look at what you already have. Do you have skills that can be turned into products, courses, or intellectual property? Do you have savings that could be placed into dividend-paying stocks, real estate, or business partnerships? Maybe you have an idea for a service or a product that, once built, could sell over and over again without you constantly rebuilding it. Whatever it is, the key is to start small, but start now. Waiting for the perfect time usually means nothing ever happens. Once you've started, commit to a rule. A fixed percentage of your active income must go into building passive income. Treat it like a non-negotiable bill you owe to your future self. And when those income streams start producing, resist the urge to spend it, reinvest it, pour it back into the machine until it can cover your essential expenses. That's when you've bought your first piece of freedom. And here's the beautiful part. Once your essentials are covered by passive income, every active dollar you earn is a choice, not a necessity. That's when work becomes a passion instead of a prison. That's when your life stops being about survival and starts being about design. Freedom doesn't happen when you make more money. It happens when money no longer needs you to make it. The rich never trade all their time for money. They trade money for more time. That's the shift most people never make. Most folks will gladly spend every waking hour trying to earn more, thinking that if they just work harder, they'll eventually get ahead. But the wealthy see it differently. They know time is the most valuable currency there is, and they guard it fiercely. Money, once you learn the game, is renewable. Time, once it's gone for good. So the wealthy ask a different question. How can I buy my time back? In my early years, I did everything myself. If it needed doing, I was the one doing it. Why? Because I thought I was saving money. What I didn't realize was that I was burning through my most precious asset, time, on things that had no lasting return. I was mowing the lawn, filing papers, making phone calls that anyone could make. All the while, the hours I could have spent building assets or making strategic moves were slipping away. Then I learned something that changed my life. You don't get wealthy by doing more. You get wealthy by doing more of what matters and letting go of what doesn't. Leverage is the bridge between a busy life and a wealthy one. And leverage comes in many forms. Sometimes it's people. You hire someone who's better at a task than you are, and suddenly it's done faster and better. Sometimes it's systems, automated processes that keep your investments, sales, or operations running even while you sleep. And sometimes it's technology, tools that can handle in seconds what used to take you hours. The point is, the wealthy are constantly asking, how can this get done without me? It's not just about comfort, it's about compounding your results. Think of it this way. If you spend 10 hours a week on tasks worth $10 an hour, you've just burned $100 of value, when you could have been spending those same 10 hours on activities worth $1,000 an hour. That's why the wealthy will happily pay someone $10 to do that work. They're not losing $10, they're gaining $990 worth of opportunity. So here's the practical step. Take an honest look at your week. Track your activities for 7 days and put a value on your time. Anything you're doing that someone else could do for less than your hourly value, you should either delegate, outsource, or automate. That might mean hiring a virtual assistant, using accounting software, or paying for marketing tools that run campaigns on autopilot. Then, and this is crucial, reinvest the time you free up into high-value actions. Don't trade mowing the lawn for sitting on the couch unless that's truly what you want. Trade it for scouting investment opportunities, meeting people who can expand your network, building products that can sell without you, or refining a system that will make you money for years to come. This is how the wealthy multiply their output without multiplying their hours. They build machines, sometimes literal, sometimes metaphorical, that keep producing value long after they've stepped away. And once you taste what it's like to have money buying you time instead of time buying you money, you'll never want to go back. Because real wealth isn't just having more money, it's having more life in the time you've got. Formal education earns you a paycheck. Self-education earns you financial independence. That's the truth most people never hear in school. The traditional system is built to prepare you for a job, how to show up on time, follow instructions, and be productive within someone else's vision. That's fine if your goal is to survive. But if your goal is to thrive, if you want freedom, choices, and a life that's designed by you, not for you, you have to go far beyond what's taught in the classroom. The wealthy know that the moment you stop learning, your earning potential starts shrinking. And the learning I'm talking about isn't memorizing facts for an exam. It's learning how money works, how markets move, how assets grow, and how to see opportunities where others only see risks. When you understand money at this level, it stops being a mystery and starts being a tool you can direct with precision. I remember when I first realized this. I had been out of formal education for years, but my income had plateaued. I was working hard, but nothing was moving. Then I picked up a book on investing, not because anyone told me to, but because I was curious. That book led me to another, and then another. I started attending seminars, listening to tapes in the car, talking to people who were ahead of me financially. The more I learned, the more I started seeing patterns. I began to notice opportunities that had been invisible to me before, simply because I didn't yet have the knowledge to recognize them. The beauty of self-education is that it compounds just like money does. Every new concept connects with something you already know. And over time, you're not just learning facts, you're developing judgment. And judgment is what allows you to make decisions quickly and confidently. Here's the practical step. Carve out at least 30 minutes a day for financial learning. That could mean reading a chapter from a book on real estate, watching a video on how to analyze stocks, listening to a podcast about business systems, or studying how to negotiate deals. The key is consistency, daily exposure to ideas that stretch your thinking. But don't stop at theory. Knowledge without action is just potential. The wealthy apply what they learn as quickly as possible, even if it's on a small scale. If you study investing, start with a small portfolio. If you study business, launch a small side project. If you study real estate, Visit open houses. Run the numbers. Talk to brokers. Real-world application will teach you lessons no book can cover, and it will build the confidence you need for bigger plays later on. And remember, the more you learn, the faster your wealth-building strategies evolve. That's because you're not just reacting to what's happening, you're anticipating it. You're positioning yourself ahead of trends instead of chasing them. That's when you stop living by the paycheck and start living by your own design. Because at the end of the day, formal education can make you a living, but self-education can make you free. If you don't control your money will control you. That's not just a catchy phrase. It's a law of life. Money is like a river. Left to itself, it will follow the path of least resistance and flow wherever it wants, often into places that don't serve you. Without direction, it gets scattered. Impulse buys here. Subscriptions you forgot about there. Little expenses that seem harmless until they've eaten away at the very wealth you were trying to build. Most people think they have a spending problem, but in reality, they have a control problem. They work hard for their money, but they don't tell it where to go. And if you don't give money a job, it'll find one for itself, and usually, it's not a job that benefits you. The wealthy understand this deeply. They treat every dollar like a little employee. Each one has an assignment, a purpose, and a clear place to go. If you manage those employees well, they work for you 24/7. If you mismanage them, they leave. Or worse, they start working for someone else. I learned this lesson in my early years when I thought I was doing well because I earned more than my peers. The problem was, my lifestyle rose right alongside my income. At the end of each month, there was little left to show for all the hours I had put in. I told myself I was doing fine until I sat down and really tracked where my money was going. That first month of tracking was a shock. I discovered that small purchases, coffee runs, unnecessary gadgets, meals out, were eating hundreds of dollars without me even noticing. From that day, I committed to tracking every expense, not just the big ones, every single one. And at the end of each month, I reviewed my own financial report. It wasn't about guilt, it was about clarity. The moment you start measuring, you gain control. And once you have control, you can make intentional decisions about where your money flows. The practical step is simple. Write it down. Whether you use an app, a spreadsheet, or a notebook, record every dollar that comes in and every dollar that goes out. Review that record monthly, just like a business reviews its financials. Then comes the wealth strategy. Take what you discover and redirect the leaks. If you find you're wasting $200 a month on things that don't truly improve your life, don't just save it, move it into assets. Put it in an investment account. Use it to pay down high-interest debt or buy into something that produces income. Even small amounts, redirected consistently, will compound into something significant over time. Money, when managed with intention, becomes a tool for freedom instead of a source of stress. But here's the truth. If you don't control it, someone else will. And they'll use it to build their dream instead of yours. Opportunities are attracted to prepared minds. It's not enough to wish for a great deal, a breakthrough investment, or the perfect timing. You have to be ready for it when it shows up. Most people think opportunity passes them by because they're unlucky, but luck has very little to do with it. The truth is, opportunity is like a passing train. It doesn't stop for people who aren't ready to board. And when it comes, it doesn't wait for you to go home, pack your bags, and get your ticket in order. It's there for a moment, then it's gone. The wealthy understand this at a level most never consider. They don't start preparing after they see the opportunity. They live in preparation so that when the right door opens, they can walk through it instantly. I've met people who stumbled upon an undervalued property, a promising business, or a rare market moment, but they had to pass because they didn't have the capital, the knowledge, or the network in place. By the time they scrambled to get ready, someone else had already seized it. I learned this lesson early when I saw a business for sale at a fraction of its true value. The owner was retiring, the market was shifting, and the deal was practically begging for someone to take it. But I hesitated, not because I didn't want it, but because I wasn't prepared financially. I didn't have liquid capital set aside, and by the time I tried to raise it, the deal was gone. That moment taught me something I never forgot. You can't get ready when opportunity knocks. You have to already be ready. Practically speaking, this means you must keep part of your resources in a form that can move quickly. Long-term investments are essential, but they aren't designed for agility. If all your wealth is locked up in illiquid assets, you may find yourself watching great chances pass by. That's why I recommend keeping an opportunity fund, a specific portion of capital that's set aside, not for emergencies, not for bills, but purely for taking advantage of rare, high-value opportunities when they appear. Now, don't mistake this for speculation or chasing every shiny object. The key is alignment. Your opportunity fund should be used for areas you understand and have prepared for. If you know real estate, your fund might be for distressed properties. If you understand markets, it might be for sudden dips in assets you believe in. Whatever it is, you should already have your criteria set before the opportunity arrives. That way, you don't waste time deciding, you just execute. Wealth strategy here is simple but powerful. Build your long-term investments for stability and growth, but always keep a percentage, maybe 5 to 10%, liquid and ready to move. Protect it from temptation. Don't let it blend with your regular savings. And while you're waiting, keep sharpening your skills and watching your chosen market so that when your moment arrives, you're not just ready, you're first in line. Because opportunity doesn't wait for you to prepare. It rewards the ones who already have. Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. The reality is, life has never been easy for anyone who accomplished anything significant. Every era has its own storms, economic downturns, market volatility, political uncertainty, technological disruptions. If you spend your energy wishing those challenges away, you'll always be waiting for the perfect season before you act. But there is no perfect season. The wealthy don't pray for calm seas. They become skilled sailors who can navigate any waters. Think about it. If the game of wealth was easy, everyone would be rich. The truth is, the people who win at it aren't playing on an easier field. They've simply trained harder, learned faster, and adapted quicker than the rest. When I started out, I faced the same struggles everyone else did. The market wasn't kinder to me. The laws of money didn't bend in my favor. The difference was that I made a decision early on. I wasn't going to wait for the economy to get better. I was going to get better myself. That mindset changes everything. If you're facing rising prices, you don't complain, you learn how to earn more or invest smarter. If competition is fierce, you sharpen your skills until you're the best option in the room. The marketplace rewards value. And the more value you bring, the more rewards flow in your direction. It's that simple. Practically, this means you have to be in a constant state of learning, specifically in areas that directly impact your earning power and your investment intelligence. If you're in sales, get better at sales. If you're an investor, get better at analyzing deals. If you're an entrepreneur, get better at building systems and scaling operations. Don't just drift through your career doing the same thing year after year. Your skills should be sharper this year than they were last year. This is where the wealthy separate themselves from the rest. They don't just take a course here and there, they immerse themselves in learning at the highest level. They invest in mentorships, advanced training, and experiences that give them an edge. They're willing to pay to learn from those who've already mastered what they're trying to do, because they understand that one insight, one connection, One strategy can be worth millions over a lifetime. Your wealth strategy here is to treat skill building as a non-negotiable investment, just like you'd invest in stocks or real estate. Set aside a portion of your income for education, coaching, and networking that keeps you ahead of the curve. Stay close to people who challenge your thinking and push you to perform at your highest level. Keep your finger on the pulse of market trends, emerging industries, and shifting consumer needs so you can pivot before the masses do. The economy will have its ups and downs. Markets will rise and fall. But if you keep getting better, your capacity to create, adapt, and thrive will outpace any challenge the world throws at you. And when you reach that level, you won't be wishing for easier days. You'll be ready for whatever days come. The best way to predict your financial future is to design it. Too many people live as if the outcome of their finances is some mystery written in the stars, something they'll find out when they get there. But wealth doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. You don't stumble into financial independence the same way you don't accidentally build a skyscraper. You have to draw the blueprint, lay the foundation, and build intentionally, brick by brick. Hope is not a plan. Wishing for better days will never create better days. I've met people who have been hoping for decades and are still in the same financial position as when I first met them. Why? Because hope without action is just a comfortable excuse. The wealthy know that if you want a certain outcome, you have to architect it in detail before you can live it. Here's how it starts. You write it down. And I mean everything. What does your ideal life look like? Not just I want more money, but how much? From what sources? In what form? Cash flow, assets, equity. What kind of lifestyle do you want? What do your days look like? Where do you live? You see, the mind works best when it has clarity. The clearer your vision, the easier it becomes to reverse engineer it into steps. When I began designing my own financial future, I didn't start with I want to be rich. I started with specifics. I knew the kind of home I wanted, the freedom to travel without asking permission, and the ability to invest in opportunities without hesitation. I wrote those down, then worked backward. If I wanted to generate that kind of income, I needed multiple streams, some active, some passive. I needed to learn specific skills. I needed to accumulate a certain net worth that produced a certain level of passive income. Suddenly, my dream wasn't floating in the clouds. It was anchored to a plan. Your wealth strategy here is to break those long-term goals into measurable, time-bound targets. If your ideal net worth is $5 million in 15 years, what's the annual increase you need? What's the quarterly milestone? What must happen every single month? You track it. You measure it. You hold yourself accountable with the same seriousness you would if you were running a business, because your life is your most important business. And here's the key: accountability. The wealthy don't just set goals, they keep score. They look at the numbers every month, and if they're falling behind, they adjust quickly. If you want to achieve your design, you can't set it and forget it. You must constantly align your actions with your vision, trimming waste, seizing opportunities, and making strategic moves. You can live by chance, or you can live by choice. But if you choose to design your future, you take control of the outcome, and that is the surest way to predict where you'll end up. The wealthy plant seeds that grow for decades. The poor plant seeds for tonight's dinner. That's the difference in thinking that separates temporary comfort from lasting abundance. Most people live in a cycle of immediate gratification. They want the fruit before the tree has even taken root. They want the paycheck now, the pleasure now, the result now. And while they're busy eating their seed, the wealthy are out in the field, planting theirs, knowing they won't see the full harvest for years. Patience is not just a virtue in wealth building, it's a requirement. You can have all the intelligence, resources, and opportunity in the world, but if you can't delay gratification, you'll sabotage yourself. I've seen it countless times. Someone gets a little extra money, and instead of letting it work for them, they spend it on a new car, new gadgets, or another weekend getaway. The wealthy, on the other hand, resist that pull. They understand that small sacrifices today create disproportionate rewards tomorrow. When I first started investing, I made a decision. I would only put my money into things that could grow on their own without me needing to babysit them every hour. That meant looking for opportunities that could compound quietly in the background while I continued to build other streams of income. I bought shares in companies that paid dividends and had a long history of increasing them. I invested in rental properties that not only provided monthly cash flow, but also appreciated in value over time. I partnered in businesses where the systems could scale far beyond my personal involvement. This is the practical strategy. Choose investments that reward patience. Stay away from get-rich-quick schemes and hype-driven trends. If it promises you riches overnight, it will likely drain you before the week is out. Instead, think in decades. How will this investment look in 5 years, in 10, in 20? Will it still be producing? Will it still be relevant? Will it be stronger than when you started? The wealth strategy here is to create a portfolio of long-term income-producing assets, dividend growth stocks that raise payouts year after year, rental properties in areas with solid demand and stable growth, businesses that can scale without your constant presence. And here's the beautiful part. Over time, these seeds begin to multiply. The dividends buy more shares. The rent increases. The business expands. Your wealth starts compounding, not just from your money, but from the returns your money produces. Too many people abandon the field before the first harvest. They plant, but then they pull up the seed to check if it's growing. The wealthy know better. They plant with intention, nurture the soil, protect the crop, and then wait. Because they know the greatest rewards are reserved for those who can look past tonight's dinner and focus on a lifetime's harvest. If you want to build wealth that lasts, plant the kind of seeds that your children, and maybe even your grandchildren, will still be harvesting long after you're gone. Money without a plan will always find someone else's pocket. That's not just a saying. It's an observation I've seen play out in countless lives. People work hard, they earn a decent living, but at the end of the month they're left wondering, where did it all go? The truth is, if you don't tell your money where to go, someone else will, through marketing, impulse, debt, or simply the quiet leak of unmanaged spending. The wealthy understand that every dollar is an employee. And just like any good manager, they make sure each employee knows exactly what its job is before it even shows up to work. When I started out, I didn't have much, but I made a rule for myself. Every time money came in, I had a written plan for it. I didn't just hope I would save. I assigned percentages. This much goes into savings, this much into investments, this much for personal growth, and this much for living expenses. I gave my money a clear job description. The result? My money started working harder than I did. Instead of slipping away into somebody else's pocket, it began creating more money for me. The philosophy is simple. Money is a tool, and tools must be used with precision. Unplanned money tends to drift toward consumption and convenience, not wealth. And the drift is dangerous because it's invisible until it's too late. That's why wealthy people rarely handle money without a purpose. They pre-decide where every dollar goes before it even lands in their account. Practically, you can start this today. Sit down and create a written plan for your income allocation. Not just save more or spend less. Write it down in specific categories. Decide on fixed percentages. How much will go into long-term investments? How much will be set aside for your opportunity fund? How much will be allocated to personal education? And yes, how much you will allow for lifestyle. The key is clarity. A dollar with no direction will wander. The wealth strategy is to review and update this plan quarterly. Why quarterly? Because the world changes, markets shift, opportunities arise, personal circumstances evolve. A static plan can quickly become outdated. Wealthy individuals treat their financial plan like a living document, always adjusting, always optimizing. If a new investment trend emerges, they evaluate whether it fits their goals. If an expense grows beyond what's necessary, they cut it without hesitation. Remember, wealth is built not just by earning more, but by directing what you already earn with intelligence and discipline. Every dollar should either be producing more dollars, protecting what you have, or improving your ability to create value. Anything outside of that is simply money drifting towards someone else's dream. Give every dollar a mission, give it a purpose, and hold it accountable. Because if you don't, rest assured, someone else will. Don't let your learning lead to knowledge. Let your learning lead to action. I've met so many intelligent people who could quote investment theories, recite the history of the markets, and debate the finer points of economics. But when I asked them about their portfolio, they had nothing. Knowledge by itself is like unplanted seed. It may have the potential for a harvest, but without planting, watering, and nurturing, it never becomes anything more than a possibility. Wealth isn't built on what you know, it's built on what you do with what you know. I learned this lesson early in my own journey. I would attend seminars, read books, and take furious notes. But when I looked at my results, they didn't match the hours I had invested in learning. Why? Because I was treating learning like an end in itself. I had to shift my thinking. Instead of asking, what did I learn today? I started asking, what am I going to do differently because of what I learned today? That simple shift changed everything. The books I read became roadmaps. The seminars I attended became launch pads. And my income, and eventually my wealth, started to reflect that change. The philosophy is clear. Learning is only half the equation. Application is the bridge between knowledge and wealth. It's not about collecting financial facts. It's about converting those facts into habits, systems, and investments that produce results. The wealthy are relentless about this. They don't just absorb information, they implement it, test it, refine it, and repeat. Practically speaking, here's what you can do. Every time you read a financial book, listen to a podcast, or attend a workshop, take a moment immediately afterward to write down one specific action you can take based on what you've learned. Not 10 actions, just one. If you learned about dividend investing, maybe your action is to research and buy one small position in a dividend-paying stock within the next week. If you studied budgeting strategies, maybe your action is to automate your savings starting this month. The key is to move from theory to execution quickly, while the idea is still fresh and exciting. From a wealth strategy standpoint, you can make this a system. Keep a running action list tied to your learning sessions. Every book, seminar, or course gets its own list of possible actions. Then, instead of letting that list collect dust, assign deadlines to each action. Review the list weekly and track your progress. This not only keeps you accountable, but also ensures that your learning compounds just like your investments. Think of it this way. One well-implemented idea can be worth more than 100 brilliant ideas sitting in a notebook. A single investment made today could be the seed of a lifelong income stream. A single system you put in place now could free up hours of your time every week for decades. That's the power of applied knowledge. Because in the end, it's not what you know, it's what you do with what you know that builds wealth. Don't just learn how to make a living, learn how to make a fortune. But if all you ever do is make a living, you'll spend your best years just getting by. A living takes care of today. A fortune takes care of tomorrow, next year, and even generations after you're gone. The difference isn't luck. It's in how you think about where your effort and money are going. When I started out, I was focused on the basics, paying rent, keeping my car running, and making sure there was food in the fridge. That's survival. But then I began to notice something. The people I admired most weren't just earning paychecks. They were building something. Something that would keep paying them long after the work was done. They were owners. They had equity. They had assets that worked harder than they did. That's when I realized the real game wasn't just about earning, it was about owning. The philosophy here is simple but powerful. A job can fund your living, but ownership builds your fortune. And ownership doesn't have to mean running a giant corporation or buying a skyscraper. It could be something as small as your first rental property, your first stock purchase, your first piece of intellectual property, or your stake in a small business. The point is that you start shifting your focus from what you earn to what you own. Practically, that means you must begin redirecting a portion of your active income into ownership opportunities. Maybe you set aside 10% of every paycheck to invest in dividend stocks. Maybe you save for a down payment on a property. Maybe you start a side business that sells a product or service online, something that can grow beyond the hours you personally put in. The transition doesn't happen overnight, but every small stake you acquire becomes another brick in the wall of your fortune. From a wealth strategy perspective, this shift is about deliberate, incremental acquisition of appreciating assets. Start small, but be consistent. The wealthy understand that the first $100 invested is as important as the first $100,000, because it's the habit that matters most in the beginning. Look for assets that not only grow in value, but also produce cash flow. Rental income, royalties, dividends, profit shares, reinvest the returns, and let compounding take over. We've spent our time today talking about more than just money. We've talked about freedom, not the kind that comes in a paycheck every 2 weeks, but the kind that comes when your assets, your ideas, and your decisions start working for you, even while you sleep. That kind of freedom doesn't arrive by accident. It's built brick by brick, choice by choice, habit by habit. The truth is, everyone in this room has the same 24 hours in a day, the same seasons to plant and harvest. The difference between those who struggle and those who prosper is not opportunity, it's preparation, discipline, and vision. The wealthy are not waiting for luck. They are designing their future, acting on what they learn, and putting their money to work every single day. So my challenge to you is simple. Before you lay your head down tonight, write down one decision you will make this week to move from earning a living to building a fortune. It could be starting a small investment, creating a side stream of income, or cutting one expense and redirecting it into an asset. Because the future belongs to those who design it, starting now.